It's such a pleasure to be back at RightOnline and working alongside the terrific team at Americans for Prosperity. And being back here in Las Vegas really evoked some fond memories for me. If I recall correctly, the last time this conference convened here in this town was in the summer of 2010. At the time, we discussed the importance of grassroots activism, of course, online, and we were recharging our batteries heading into a very important midterm election. The aim of everyone in that room was to send a clear and unambiguous message to the White House that we, the people, had had just about enough of this president, the left, and their destructive agenda, and the message was sent a few months later. 63 new Republicans in the House, 6 new Republican senators, and 6 gubernatorial pickups, in addition to 09 with Christie and McDonough. And here we meet again, with a much larger task at hand. So, with that as a backdrop, I thought I'd tell you about a rather unusual experience I had earlier in the week. So it's Wednesday afternoon, and my cell phone rings, and I look at the phone and I didn't recognize the number, but I saw that the area code was 212, so it was Manhattan. I answered the call, and a very friendly voice at the other end identified itself as that of a producer at MSNBC. The young woman wanted to know if I might, pretty please, that's what she actually said, pretty please, be available that evening to join a panel discussion on that night's edition of The Ed Show with Ed Schultz. Based on your response, I gather you're familiar with this gentleman? Yes. Yeah, his most trenchant contribution to the national dialogue came during the Obamacare debate when he presented this nuanced piece of analysis to his audience, and I quote, "Republicans lie. They want to see you dead. They'd rather make money off of your dead corpse. They kind of like it when that woman gets cancer and they don't have anything for her." End quote. Nice. New tone. So I pondered the invitation for a moment and realized what I might be getting myself into, but I concluded that more than anything else, this would probably be really fun. So I accepted. She sounded very relieved, extremely grateful, almost as if the Ed Show has trouble booking conservatives for some reason. And within a few minutes, they sent me an email with the evening's topics. Topic 1, aren't these damned Republicans intentionally sabotaging the economy to hurt Obama? And topic 2, gosh, what Obama really needs to do more of is blame Bush. Those are the 2 topics for the night. So I get to the studio, and the show kicks off at 8 p.m. Eastern, and I'm sitting in the green room by myself. High entertainment followed. I'm not a regular viewer of the show, believe it or not, so this was a long period of witnessing something new. By my count, I was literally the only conservative guest on the show. Not on the panel, on the entire hour-long show. Our segment was preceded by a lengthy interview with self-identified socialist Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, and then there was a very serious discussion about why racism is now starting to hurt Obama in 2012. This is what I like to call alternate reality television. So finally we're up. Get down, earpiece in, and it was a 3-on-1 debate, which is no surprise at all, but let's face it, I still had the upper hand because the way I figure it, the truth has to count for at least 3 MSNBC contributors. So let's say it's 4-on-3. So, despite enduring what I believe to be a world record quadruple interruption in a span of 20 seconds, I managed to destroy their canard of Republican obstructionism for numerous reasons, including the fact that they controlled everything for 2 years, could have done whatever they wanted, and the notion that all of a sudden Republicans are blocking everything that's good and right in the world is completely laughable. And I also noted a certain irony. Here we have the President of the United States running for re-election, and his slogan, you know his slogan is one word, forward. And yet his strategy seems to be, yeah, blaming the guy who hasn't been in office for 3.5 years for everything that's wrong with the country. There's just sort of a disconnect there, and just blank stares from everyone else on the air. So it was fun, and based on the ensuing Twitter meltdown among Ed's viewers, I suspect I may have struck a nerve. When I got off the air, I was just deluged with furious tweets. And a quick parenthetical note here, nothing says I'm an informed and productive member of society like furious, ungrammatical profanity in all caps. That really is very powerful. I almost changed my mind on a few things. One young lady in particular, this was good, sent me a long stream of invective on Twitter, the central theme of which is that I am illiterate. I'll let you guess which word she misspelled. Her Twitter avatar, by the way, naturally was the Obama O logo, which she might describe as one of those things you have to buy on Wheel of Fortune. It's a valve. Just helping her, in case she's watching. Now, I have to say, in all seriousness, the experience was so much fun. It was great. The staff at MSNBC could not have been nicer or more accommodating. But there was one major disappointment from the experience that I still can't quite shake. The big man, Ed Schultz himself, was out all week. So I didn't get to enjoy his on-air company. There was a guest host. His staff said he was on vacation. So I got to thinking, why might Ed Schultz have needed a vacation this past week? And I couldn't help but wonder if perhaps Scott Walker stomping all over his big government dreams might have had something to do with the timing of this particular holiday that he took. Now, the good news is I've been invited back to rejoin this party, and I'm told Ed will be back from his vacation/physician-mandated bed rest. So I hope you tune in when that happens. So, quickly on Wisconsin. There's a reason why I've had this smile plastered on my face for 2 weeks. This was so much fun. At risk of doing further damage to Ed's ongoing recovery, let's recap the timeline in the Badger State and recapitulate the epic, repeated failures of its Democrats and government sector unions. The story begins in 2010. Their unpopular Democrat governor in Wisconsin didn't run for re-election, so Scott Walker wins the Republican nomination, and Democrats, predictably, immediately start painting him as a cold-hearted right-wing extremist that the state could not afford. They failed. He was elected by 5 points, and Republicans won both houses of the legislature, including defeating both Democrat leaders in both houses, the equivalent of beating Reid and Pelosi in the same year. Can you imagine? So, within weeks of being sworn in, Walker introduced his now famous budget fix legislation. The left instantly descended into a giant public conniption fit, banging on drums, breaking into and occupying the state capitol, painting Hitler mustaches on photos of the governor. Democrats in the Senate literally fled the state. All of these histrionics designed to intimidate Republican lawmakers and obstruct passage. They failed, and Walker's budget became law. Liberals promptly filed lawsuits to block the law from being implemented. In order to help ensure success in the courts, they pushed hard to defeat an incumbent conservative Wisconsin Supreme Court justice named David Prosser, who was up for re-election in April. They failed. Prosser won. The law eventually worked its way up to the state Supreme Court, where it was upheld by one vote, that of David Prosser's. So at this point they're incensed, and they launched a recall effort against 6 Walker allies in the state Senate. That was back in August. They needed to pick off 3 Republicans to reclaim a majority in the upper chamber. They failed, and Republicans maintained their majority in the state Senate. But all of that was merely the precursor to the main fight, the main event, the attempted recall of the governor himself. They chose this fight. They spent countless hours and tens of millions of dollars chasing their quixotic recall obsession. They insisted on this sore loser do-over election that cost taxpayers $16 million. They called this race the second most important on the calendar in 2012, and they failed. Walker not only won, as you know, he romped. He won over 200,000 more votes than he did in 2010 and expanded his victory margin by nearly 2 full percentage points. Crestfallen, the left tried to spin this crushing loss as somehow a victory for President Obama, relying on flawed and discredited exit polls to fuel their fantasy. They failed. A new Rasmussen poll in Wisconsin shows Mitt Romney leading by 3 points over Barack Obama. So great. It's so great. So here's the key, I'm almost done. Here's the key lesson to be drawn from that litany of awesome that I just outlined. The left's myriad failures did not occur in a vacuum or by accident. They happened for two very important reasons. First, Scott Walker's conservative, limited government reforms worked. The state added tens of thousands of jobs, closed a multi-billion-dollar annual deficit without raising taxes. Property taxes are falling in Wisconsin for the first time in 12 years, and liberated from restrictive and pernicious collective bargaining rackets, local communities have been able to realize huge savings while avoiding layoffs or painful cuts in the classroom. So conservatism works, and it was rewarded by voters in a state that has not voted for a Republican presidential candidate since before I was born. That is serious. Savor that. That's a big deal in Wisconsin. And secondly, and perhaps more importantly, equally importantly I'll say, the left was out-hustled, out-organized, out-fundraised, out-passioned, and out-argued by you. Grassroots conservatives in Wisconsin and really around the entire country recognized the stakes of that election and worked their rear ends off to make sure that Walker's courage was affirmed and not punished. So, quick show of hands, how many of you are actually from Wisconsin and voted for Scott Walker? All right, a few of you, hands still up. How many of you volunteered in some way for Scott Walker, phone banking, or anything like that? Very good, keep your hands up. How many of you donated to Scott Walker at some point? Wow, so at least half the room. Now keep your hand raised if you're a Koch brother. Right, exactly. This election was won by average people, taxpayers who have been starving for real, responsible executive leadership. And we don't have that in the White House today. We have an arrogant presidency adrift in the sea of its own failures and hamstrung by an unflinching, destructive ideology. We cannot afford 8 more years of Barack Obama, but defeating him is going to take a mammoth, united, and focused effort. Yes, he's had a few dreadful weeks in a row, but make no mistake, this president and his media henchmen are going to do absolutely anything they can in the next 4.5 months to clinch a second term. It is up to you, it is up to us, the people in this room and the people like us around the country, to follow the Wisconsin model and to send this president packing back to Chicago. So to borrow a theme from this president, forward, onward, to victory, together, let's get to work. Thank you guys so much.
Ladies and